Hello and welcome to Cooking with Anand. Today, for Thanksgiving, I'm going to be making some pot pie, and this is going to be a vegetarian pot pie. It's not going to have any chicken or turkey in it. And the first thing we have to do is add some oil to a saucepan on medium-high heat, and we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of oil. And already have all your vegetables already chopped up. So I have some half of an onion, 3 spring onions, aka green onions, and a clove of garlic minced. Then I have 2 carrots and 1 potato chopped up. And then I have some flour that I'm going to add later in it, and that's going to be our thickening agent. It's kind of like a roux, and this is 3 tablespoons of flour, 3 tablespoons of oil. You can really use whatever vegetables you want, but make sure you put them in the order that they cook. So these onions need more time to cook than these carrots and the potatoes. And we're also going to be baking these. So right now, it's a good idea to preheat your oven to 475 degrees. And when I make pot pie, I make it different than the traditional pot pie. I have my vegetable sauce, kind of like the gravy, and I have like biscuit, like a biscuit dough that I put on top, so you have little individual biscuits with a little bit of filling underneath of that. I have already made my biscuit dough, and it is in the fridge. And what I did was I grated 6 tablespoons of butter into 2 cups of flour, and I added half a teaspoon of salt, 2.5 teaspoons of baking soda, or baking powder, I'm sorry. And then I mixed those together, and then I added in my milk. You can use buttermilk, you can use plain yogurt. It doesn't really matter. Plain yogurt or buttermilk works best. And make sure your butter does not melt. You want it to be really small, but you don't want it to melt, because in French pastries, the butter is what helps it rise and be really flaky and crispy. Now that my oil has heated up, I'm going to add in my onion and my green onion with my garlic. And I'm just going to slowly add that in. And now you want to stir it until these onions get translucent, and then we can add in the other stuff. Now that the onions are translucent and they've been cooking for about 1.5 minutes, I'm going to add in my flour, and I'm going to kind of stir that in. And once the flour has been combined in with the green onions and the oil, then I can add in my potatoes and carrots. Here you go. And like I said before, you can add whatever you want. You can add broccoli, peas, whatever you fancy. And now we just have to cook this until the potatoes are tender. Okay, now I'm going to season everything really, really well with salt and pepper. And you need to put a lot of seasoning in because it's a lot of vegetables. And now we're going to add in our vegetable stock. It's about 1.5 cups of vegetable stock. And you just want to wait until this starts to thicken a little bit. And we're also going to add a pinch of thyme, and this is dried thyme, and we'll just wait for that to thicken. So while our sauce is thickening for the pot pie, I'm going to take out the biscuit dough, and if it gets a little bit dry, add a little bit of water to it. It's going to be really cold. It should be really cold. And if you look at it closely, you can see there are little small chunks of butter in it. And in the oven, those will the fat will heat up and it'll kind of steam, which will make it rise and get nice and flaky. And so now I'm going to try to make 9 even biscuits out of this biscuit dough. I poured the contents of my saucepan into this casserole dish. It's like a glass oven safe dish, and this is kind of the thickness you want it to be. It's not quite super thick, it's kind of like a gravy. And now what you want to do is top it with your biscuits. And you want to kind of do this fast because this is already going to melt the butter inside, and you want the oven to melt the butter because if it's already melted by the time it gets into the oven, it's not going to get all flaky. And this is going to thicken up a little bit more in the oven, and we're going to bake it in there for 11 to 15 minutes until the biscuits are fully cooked through. And remember, the oven is preheated to 475 degrees. Now I'll put the timer for 11 minutes and I'll check it then. I'm ready to enjoy these wonderful golden brown pot pies at the breakfast table. And when you're serving them, just take one of the biscuits out and take the filling with it. The filling should be pretty thick after baking. So I have my Thanksgiving breakfast here with English muffins, my biscuit and pot pie filling, an egg, and some hash browns. Can't wait to dig in. The creamy sauce and the amazing vegetables perfectly topped with the crunchy biscuit. This is by far my favorite dish.